all emotion aside, I don't see what Ron DeSantis did that was wrong. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about Kamala Harris, quote unquote, ripping Florida Governor Ron DeSantis over some new standards for Black history in the state of Florida. Now, the standards call for teaching slavery in its entirety without leaving anything out. And what I mean by that is some things that you may hear could be offensive depending upon your particular mentality. Now, there's one piece of the new standards that say that slaves may have benefited from certain skills that they learned during slavery after slavery. Prime example, if someone is a slave and they learn how to be a carpenter, a brick mason, a farmer, and then they're able to do that on the side, aside from being a slave, save up money, and then buy their freedom, that benefited them. Now, am I saying that slavery was beneficial itself? No. Am I saying that slavery was good? No. Am I saying that it was benevolent, kind, warm, pleasant? No. What I am saying is, if you learn skills during slavery and that helped you get out of slavery, those skills were beneficial. That is a simple fact. Now, we're going to get into some video and whatnot of DeSantis saying a particular thing about this. If you want to see all these videos, I'll link to them in the description. If you're on IG, visit the link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But here, we're going to start with this particular person from Equality, Florida, speaking about the whole thing. And this kind of reaction is what you're going to get from a lot of people. So let's play this first, then DeSantis. Then we're going to get into some MS-13 DNC news footage. All right. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
Do not, for the love of God, tell kids that slavery was beneficial, because I can guarantee you it most certainly was not. Thank you.
Education and civil rights advocates are slamming new Black history teaching standards in Florida. Under the new rules, middle school teachers must now include lessons, quote, how slaves developed skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit.
It's inaccurate, it's ahistorical. Critics are calling this a big step backwards and saying it's a disservice to Florida students because they're not going to learn the full truth and the full accurate truth of American history.
I don't understand how it's untruthful. It is a truth. The example I gave earlier is a prime example of this. To say that it's not true is not true. Now let's go to Ron DeSantis. He was asked about this. I'm not sure where this particular event was or what was going on, but someone asked him about it, and we're going to see what his response is.
Get your clarification on one thing within the policy. It says instruction includes how slaves develop skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. Could you just explain why that's?
You should talk to them about it. I mean, I didn't do it, and I wasn't involved in it. But I think what they're doing is I think that they're probably going to show some of the folks that eventually parlayed, being a blacksmith into doing things later in life. But the reality is, all of that is rooted in whatever is factual. They listed everything out. And if you have any questions about it, just ask the Department of Education. You can talk about those folks. But I mean, these were scholars who put that together. It was not anything that was done politically.
I don't see what he said that is wrong. First of all, let's talk about that part. Critics want to blame DeSantis. They're saying that he's the one behind this. I mean, is the governor writing the curriculum? Is he the guy that's going to be in the Department of Education talking about this kind of stuff? That's not what he does. Okay. His job is running the state, not the Department of Education. And they're going to go back to the whole thing about Black history courses that had been altered. There was a story earlier in the year about DeSantis eliminating Black history courses from Florida or banning Black history. First of all, that was false. Black history is required in Florida, but the story was about, I believe it was college AP Black history. And it was just, we needed to make some changes to it. In that case, they were trying to have the LGBTQ stuff wrapped up in Black history. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I don't think the LGBT movement and Black history are the same. They're not. There's not really a path or bridge to both. But yet they wanted to teach that in the AP history course, and then that was stricken away. We got to get to the reality of what's going on. And the reality is not what a lot of people, a lot of normies think. A lot of normies think that slavery was about the white man going to Africa and kidnapping Africans with a net, something crazy. And then, the black person was the victim. Nobody else did slavery. It was only the white man to the black man. And then that was it. The reality is that this was a global institution, and it still is a global institution, just not as widespread as it was back during the 16 and 17 and 1800s. Okay. You had African tribes attacking other African tribes, and whoever lost, whoever fell, would get held captive or killed. If they were held captive, they were sold to the Europeans, traded really, a lot of times for trinkets, hand mirrors, peppers, salt, spices, all kind of stuff like that. And they were also traded to the Arabs, and it was much more brutal over there. They would walk them across the Sahara Desert from outposts like Timbuktu all the way into the Ottoman Empire, like Saudi, Egypt, etc. They would go all the way over there as slaves from West Africa. All right. So everybody was involved with it. Nobody's innocent. Nobody is free from any kind of guilt if you're going to assign guilt to our 500-year-ago ancestors. But different story. I digress. We have another video here. There's one more video I want to show you guys. This is from MS13DNC. All right. And we're going to check out the Kamala Harris comments and also some comments from a young man by the name of Jonathan Capehart.
Adults know what slavery really involved. It involved rape. It involved torture. It involved taking a baby from their mother. How is it that anyone could suggest that in the midst of these atrocities, that there was any benefit to being subjected to this level of dehumanization?
This is the emotional argument right here. All of what she's saying about the assaults and everything, that of course was part of slavery. Ain't nobody gonna say, like I said from the beginning, nobody's trying to say that slavery was a good thing. But if you're gonna tell me that a slave who was taught a skill did not use that ever to gain their freedom, to escape, or anything like that. Because think about it like this. If a slave escaped the South and went to like Nova Scotia, Canada, to freedom, right? What are they going to do when they get to Canada? They got to do something. They got to use skills. What did they learn it during slavery? Now, should they have been free the whole time? Absolutely. Is slavery a bad thing? Absolutely. Should we ever have had slavery? No. But you have it, so what are you going to do? Turn a bad situation into a good one once you leave it. That is the general message, but people just get so caught up on these words and so caught up in their feelings, they can't see the reality. This is why people love politicians. They love politicians because they make them feel good. They will tell them any kind of lie to make them feel good. They'll lie by omission. They'll lie outright, and it makes them feel good. And the mainstream media joins in on it because when DeSantis does something like this, not even him, but through the DOE out there in Florida, he's a racist and the bad guy. But when Joe Biden says, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black, then it's not really a big deal because the media is not making it a big deal. Now, if DeSantis said something like, hey, if you don't eat fried chicken, you ain't black, then you can bet your bottom dollar every news outlet, including Fox, everybody would cover it 24/7 and call him a racist. Would they be right? Yes. But it's also right to cover when Joe Biden says, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. But they're not going to do that because that's their guy. The media and the politicos join in brainwashing the masses, brainwashing the sheep and making them get emotionally triggered at stuff like this. But let's continue here and check out what Capehart has to say.
That was Kamala Harris, the country's first black vice president, in Jacksonville, Florida today, saying something that should not be up for debate. The vice president's speech comes as Florida faces backlash over new standards for teaching black history in public schools. Those standards require middle schoolers to learn that enslaved people, quote, developed skills that personally benefited them. The State Department of Education has responded to criticism with a statement that reads, in part, The intent of this particular benchmark clarification is to show that some slaves developed highly specialized trades from which they benefited.
Can we read? Can we actually like read this right here? I mean, some of this is kind of obfuscated, but let's read some of this right here. So every standard, benchmark, and benchmark clarification was developed using a methodical process within our work group. Our work group began in February and worked through May to ensure the new standards provide comprehensive and rigorous instruction on African American history. We proudly stand behind these African American history standards. There have been questions raised about language within the benchmark clarification of standard. I can't see that right there, which says instruction includes how slaves develop skills, which in some instances could be applied to the personal benefit. And then the highlighted part, the intent of this particular benchmark clarification is to show how some slaves develop highly specialized trades from which they benefited. That is correct. Okay, so there's something right here. I can't see it. Elizabeth Reckley, James Thomas, and teachers like Bessie Stockton, Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington was one of the main ones. You know, cast your bucket where you are. Yep. Quote, any attempt to reduce slaves to just victims of oppression fails to recognize their strength, courage, and resiliency during a difficult time in American history. Florida students deserve to learn how slaves took advantage of whatever circumstances they were in to benefit themselves and the community of African descendants. Facts. Big facts. All the towns that were created after slavery, all the freedmen across the country, all the Black Wall Streets everywhere, not just in Oklahoma, but all over the country. Okay, we were able to rise above it. It's not about, oh, slavery was good. It's not even about that. It's about getting beyond slavery. That is the whole point. That is the point. I continue. It is disappointing, but nevertheless unsurprising that critics will reduce months of work to create Florida's first ever standalone strand of African American history standards to a few isolated expressions without context. We encourage everyone to view these robust standards for themselves. What are we talking about here? Emotions, feelings. If you take the emotion and the feeling away and stop being soft, be a man, or put on your big girl pants, and if you're just being real, what's being said here is 100% right.
That statement lists 16 people who...
Okay, so examples include blacksmiths like Ned Cobb, Henry Blair, Lewis Latimer, John Henry, of course, shoemakers like James Ford and Paul Cuffey, Betty Washington Lewis, fishing and shipping, industry workers like Jupiter Hammond, John Chavis, William Chipper, Crispus Attucks, shout out Crispus Attucks, the Attucks Theater out there in Norfolk, Virginia, tailors like Elizabeth Keckley, James Thomas, and Marietta Carter, and teachers like Betsy Stockton and Booker T. Washington. Where's the lie? Where's the lie? And then they say, oh, it's only just a few people. Well, these are some famous people that you would recognize, people that have had books and everything made about them, movies made about them, schools named after them. These are the most famous people, but there were regular, average, everyday people that were able to rise from slavery. Okay, that is the reality. Why are we trying to act like that's not the case?
Allegedly benefited from their enslavement, but at least 6 of those people were never enslaved. It specifically names Ned Cobb, and while the Department of Education is not specific about which Ned Cobb they have listed, history books across the country teach about a Ned Cobb who was born in Alabama in 1885, the son of an enslaved man. The skill he learned was farming, and he used that skill to escape the financial binds of sharecropping.
Exactly. You proving it right there, because they'll say that sharecropping was the next step of slavery. So what are we even talking about? You're proving the point right here, Mr. Jonathan K. Park, married to a white man, but I don't want to go down that road, so I digress.
If you can call that a personal benefit.
It is. I'm not going to play this whole thing right here because we got time constraints. But yeah, I don't see the problem. People just get so emotional. They get triggered. They don't want to hear. They hear the word slavery and benefit and just get turned off. They get turned off because the media told them to. But when you hear, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black by Joe Biden, oh, no problem. Because the media didn't tell you to. The media didn't direct you in that direction. As I close, I want to say this. There's nothing wrong with these standards. These standards are good. It's weird because when they had the LGBTQ stuff in there, that was nothing to do with slavery. That was false. That was just inserted in there for the sake of it. And then when that was taken away, people didn't like it. And then when you put reality into slavery, like some slaves had skills and they used those skills to escape bondage, to rise above slavery, to get away from slavery, when that's put in there, which is a true thing, people are mad about that. It's so weird. Do we want honesty or not? But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? How do you feel about what's going on here with the new standards from Florida as far as African American history? Are they on point, off point? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. These standards are on point. Let's talk about history completely. Let's talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, all sides, left, right, non-biased, everything. Don't just say the white man went to Africa and kidnapped some black folks and then worked them to death on the plantation in America. Let's talk about the Arabs who were involved, the whites who were involved, the blacks who were involved, the blacks who enslaved the whites, whites enslaved blacks. Let's talk about everybody. Let's talk about the whole thing, the real picture, no details left out, so we get the true picture of history rather than a sanitized one or a exaggerated one just to play into the whole victimhood narrative. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.